At the highest levels, sometimes even the smallest mistake strategically can make a world of difference in the match. I want you to watch this point. I want you to look for the mistake, the strategic mistake by this player at the bottom of the screen. Try to notice it, and then we'll diagram it. Now, even though this player won the point, there was a moment where he let his opponent off the hook. So let's check out the point here. His opponent comes to the net off this short ball. This is a really good play, by the way, from the player at the bottom. When your opponent comes up to the net, sometimes it's best, and I would say more than sometimes, a vast majority of the time, it's best to avoid going for a pass. But actually, it's in your best interest to spin the ball low to them. So I want you to watch the shot he hits. He just hits the ball low to the volleyer, gives the volleyer a low volley. And notice the player at the baseline immediately moves forward when he does it. When you have an opponent who comes forward, when you hit low to them to force them to volley up, you want to move forward because they most likely volley short. So here's the short volley. Now, here's another moment where the player at the bottom of the screen hits a smart shot. He's going to go for a lob here. Well, you have to know if your opponent is left or right-handed. And if your opponent is right-handed, it's in your best interest to lob over their backhand side, which is the ad side. And that's exactly what he does here. He hits a lob over the opponent's backhand side, and he gets the ball to land inside the court. But I want you to notice where the lobber is now standing. He's now standing 5 feet behind the baseline after he hit a great lob. Now, let's really dive into this. Let's put ourselves in this person's situation. When you go for this lob, you aren't initially sure if your shot is going to be successful. So when you pop that ball up, and if you look at this guy right here, he's going back, trying to hit an overhead. He's like right there. When you see that, you're thinking, uh-oh, that's going to be a scissor kick overhead. So initially, it's actually correct for this guy to start moving back because he wants to get away from that overhead. But as soon as he sees the guy not hit the overhead, right? So this is what Jorge Capistani, the great coach in the Midwest, he talks about butts and elbows. That's more in doubles because it's plural. But when you see your opponent's butt and you see their elbows, you want to attack or move forward. The idea is, and this is what I teach, when you lob over your opponent, move to the service line. And that way you're not getting super tight to the net, which makes you susceptible to a lob back, and you're not going back, which then, doesn't allow you to attack and to take advantage of their next shot. At this very moment, when the lobber sees the opponent running back for this shot and that his ball is landed in, he needs to change direction and immediately move to the service line. When you successfully, write this in stone in your mind, when you successfully lob over your opponent, go to the service line. He continues going back. So you have an opponent. Let's look at the opponent. At the top of the screen here, you have an opponent who's in trouble. It's not like anyone at the beginning of the point is saying, oh, I hope my opponent lobs successfully right on the baseline over my head. So this guy is in a defensive situation here. And because of that, he's in a little bit of trouble. He's off balance. Look at him hit the ball. He's completely off balance as he's hitting this ball. Now he's controlled off balance, but he is off balance. Let's be honest what he's doing. So this is what you call a red situation. But the guy at the bottom of the screen is neutral. If your opponent is red, you need to be green. And the way to be green is to be on the service line. Now, here's a cool way of knowing when the guy at the bottom of the screen would hit the ball. We can use the shadow. So let's look at the shadow and just kind of understand where the sun is. So the shadow is slightly behind the object. Right? So here's the guy standing here and his shadow is slightly behind him, which means the sun is just a little bit in front of the court. So we can look at the shadow of the tennis ball and there's the shadow right there. That lets us know when the ball, we can see the shadow, right? We can see when the ball would have reached the service line. So actually, we wouldn't even have to wait for it to get to the service line because the opponent could have gone forward depending on how high the ball was. But let's just say that it's right at the service line, which is right there. So This guy could be hitting the ball right now if, and let me draw this, if he had been standing at the service line. If he had been standing at the service line, he could have been hitting this ball and he could have been hitting it into the open court, robbing this guy of the time to get back in. Let's see where, let's kind of put a mark here where that guy is at that exact moment. Let's see where he gets to. Well, never mind. The camera changed. But now, because this guy is farther back, because this guy has more time, then the point goes neutral again. And so this great lob that was hit is squandered because he initially moved back, which was correct because he thought the opponent was going to hit an overhead, which anybody would move back in that situation. But the moment he realized that it was a successful lob, he's got to go back, and that really should be green. He should then attack and go to the service line. Again, the reason you want to go to the service line is if you get too close, then a ball can go over your head. And if you stay back, what if your opponent hits a weak ball and you've squandered it? Going to the service line allows you to be equidistant to the shots, anywhere that you need to go, and you're not susceptible to any particular shot. You're able to get all the different shots that your opponent hits. Now, the point continues. He blasts a forehand down the line that the opponent ends up missing wide. And so, yes, did this guy win the point? Absolutely. But he made a strategic mistake that I want you to avoid. And you typically see this in club tennis. You see successful lobs going over the opponent's head. And these players, the player who hits the lob either gets super tight to the net or they move back. You want to be in the middle. And this is why I teach put your toes on the service line. That way it's really specific. He hits the great lob over the opponent's backhand side. Again, that is just a smart shot. That lets me know how smart a player this guy is. But at this exact moment, because he went back, he needed to then go forward and get on the service line. He would have won the point on this next shot right there. He would have been hitting this ball into the open court. And once he goes back, I would say it's basically a 50-50 who's going to win this point. If he had stayed up at the net, he would win that point easily 70% of the time. Now, before we diagram this on the big board, I'm going to share two things with you. First, I've got the Fuzzy Yellow Balls singles and doubles playbook here. If you love strategy, you love coming up with ways to beat your opponents. Maybe you're playing somebody new, right? And they have a certain style to their game. They're a counter puncher, they're aggressive baseliner, or they always come to the net. If you want to know how to beat them, you got the blueprint right here, whether it's doubles or singles, over 150 pages of strategy after strategy. And the coolest thing is, each strategy has a corresponding video. Just take your phone with the QR code, put the camera app over that QR code, and up pops a video from Will Hamilton from Fuzzy Yellow Balls showing you exactly how to execute these strategies. Just use my link in the description below. I'm also going to pin it in the first comment. Actually, both links to the singles and doubles playbook I'll pin in the first comment. Now, it's great to have strategies, but you gotta have strong opponents, people to play against, new people to practice with. If you're struggling in your area, to find people to hit with, practice with, or even find a coach who's close to you to help you with your strategy, then included down below in the description and in the first comment, I'm also gonna put my link, playyourcourt.com/2minute tennis. Use my link, get 50% off when you join, and find people in your local area to use these strategies against. When you lob your opponent, you gotta go to the service line. Kind of, just think about what that point was. They were hitting back and forth. This guy came to the net. This guy, appropriately, kind of far behind the baseline on his backhand side, he didn't go for the pass, which I really like, especially at the club level. It's easier to win the point when you involve your opponent in the point rather than trying to avoid them, thinking that, I got to go for a pass or I got to go for the lob off of their initial approach shot. Sometimes you're in so much trouble that going for one of those shots becomes riskier. So just hitting it right to your opponent and letting gravity and spin bring the ball down below net level is going to help you win a lot of points. Now, when the player at the bottom of the screen did that, he correctly moved forward because when the ball is low, typically the ball is popped up. And we actually saw that. It was a weaker ball that he then came in, changed his grip to a volley grip, and this player was here. He went for the lob over the backhand side. Super smart. You have to make sure that you are lobbing over your opponent's backhand side when possible to reduce the possibility that they just crush the ball right at you. Even if you hit a weak lob, at least it's going to be on their backhand and you're not just feeding it right to them to slam you with it. Now, he correctly, when he went for that lob and he saw this player going back, he wasn't sure if the ball was going to be hit as an overhead. So he comes in, pops the ball up over his head, and that's when we see him moving back, which is correct because he wants to go back to buy himself time in case this player hits the overhead. So everything is good at this point. The moment that the ball went over the lobbee, he's the lobber, the lobbee's head, the moment the ball lands in, he needs to change course and go forward. So it would look like this. Oh no, he's going to slam it. Oh no, it went over his head. You would immediately change course and change direction. This isn't about, well, is momentum carried him? No, people are changing. Tennis is a game of changing direction. So we can't just let him off the hook, right? Now, I'm not I'm not busting on this guy. If I played that guy, I would win 0 points, right? So this isn't about, oh, I'm so much better than he is. What I'm trying to show you is all the good that he did and the one mistake that he made strategically in that point that if he watches this point, maybe he can learn from it. And we can all learn from it as well. We definitely learned a lot of good things that this player at the bottom of the screen was doing throughout that point. It was great. So once you see the ball successfully go over your opponent's head, put your toes on the service line. A few years back, I started saying put your toes on the service line rather than just go to the service line. Because I found through 25 years of coaching, when you tell people, hey, go to the service line, they don't actually go to the service line. When they hear go to the service line, they do this. They're well inside the service line. And then even a mediocre lob goes right over their head. So I stopped saying go to the service line and I was more specific. Put your toes on the service line. And I found a lot more success with that, players not getting too tight to the net. We have to kind of guess what shot this opponent's going to hit, right? Most likely they are going to hit a lob. They don't always, but typically, especially in club tennis, that ball is lobbed back. Well, if you get tight to the net, you're just rushing, as Vic Braden said, you're rushing the net to lose at a faster rate. You're getting tighter to the net so that their lob becomes, it's easier for their lob to go over your head. And if you go back, well, if they hit a weak lob, you squander that opportunity. So all signs lead to putting your toes on the service line. Now, because this player was back, and he actually kind of hit an off-balance, hard shot. He didn't hit the ball very softly. He actually hit it pretty hard, which didn't give him time to get back over. So if this player had been toes on the service line, he would have had a high volley that he could have volleyed off the court right away. We saw him go back, and all of a sudden, that point went 50-50 again. Now, he did end up winning the point, but it was much harder. And over a 2-hour span, you'd rather have a 70% chance of winning points than a 50% chance of winning points. I'm sure you would agree with that. The cool thing about having video of match play is that you can review the footage and you can see what you can learn from. That's why it's so important that you follow Matt Lynn on YouTube. Subscribe to his channel. I put his link below. He has match after match after match, both pro and college footage that you can watch and learn. But that's also why I'm suggesting to you that you film your matches. I guarantee you, if you film your matches, you are going to see things that you know you should be doing that you aren't. And when you know what you should be doing and you're seeing that you're not doing it on video, it gives you kind of the kick in the butt to actually make the changes to raise your level of play. When you lob your opponent successfully, right? The ball goes over their head. They don't slam an overhead. The ball is going over their head and it bounces and they're running back. Immediately put your toes on the service line. By the way, this is both singles and doubles. I was about to end this video, but let me just say, if you're here and you lob over your opponent's head and they're running back, you should move back to the service line. Notice I haven't said move forward and put your toes on the service line. I simply say just put your toes on the service line, because I don't know where you are on the court whenever that happens, especially in doubles. You might be close to the net. Your partner does the lobbing. You should move back for all the reasons we just stated. Put your toes on the service line when you hit a great lob in both singles and doubles, and there's no doubt you're going to gain confidence, win more matches, and play much better tennis. This is Ryan Reedy from 2minutetennis.net.
You got this.